Hello and welcome to the CYF course. We continue on the series on human development. This is the number 4, and today we'll speak about the stage between 6 months and 18 months old. This is what we call the exploration stage, and the issues of this stage are exploration, mobility, initiative, motivation, and creativity. This is the season of life where we need to foster and encourage these different characteristics. Of course, the child learns to turn himself, he starts to crawl, to explore around him, his curiosity is awakened, and he needs at this time to touch. In exploration, his creativity is exercised. He discovers the world around him and he starts to have the means to explore it. Actually, why do so few people around us have initiative and motivation? Very often it was because during this stage of their life they've been put in a playpen, they've been hindered in their initiative to explore or to taste or to try things around them. Because parents who want to raise well-behaved children, they prevent their children from developing these things. Actually, the child has to develop a lot of concepts in exploration, especially through his mouth. This is the season of life where he wants to put everything in his mouth. Not especially to eat it, but to try it, to taste, to see what is soft, what is hard. The child must be allowed to move, to explore, to manipulate things. He needs to be active, but he also needs to be protected in his exploration and not hurt himself. If the child hurts himself, he will also learn something and he will be stopped in his exploration. What does he learn? Oh, exploring is dangerous. Initiative is dangerous. It can hurt me. So it's a balance between freedom that we give and protection that we offer. If the child is constantly stopped, he will lose motivation. Motivation is the environment through which we relate to ourselves, discovering who we are in our environment, what can we do and what we cannot do. The nervous system actually is developing so rapidly during this stage. The connections in the brain are made at high speed. So the more the child is allowed to move and discover, the more the nervous system will be enriched. And the child will learn very important things at this age that will give foundation for him when he will study later at school. So, the playpen, or let's call it baby jail. Don't put the baby in the playpen too long, because he needs to explore and discover. Of course, you can put it for half an hour when you need to vacuum the house or to prepare something where you need the child, you need to make sure that the child is secure. But don't let the child stay in the playpen for the whole day. If the child can move, he is encouraged to be in touch with his motivation and initiative. The child needs to touch and not be held back or punished. He is a touching machine at this stage. Asking a 15-month-old child not to touch is like stopping him from breathing and hitting him when he does it anyway. If you don't want the child to touch an object, move it. Or divert the child's attention in another direction so that you don't have to say no, no, no all the time without being able to say yes, yes, yes for something else. You know, what is the first word that the child learns to say? Very often, this is the word no. Around 2 years old, he's always saying no, because this is the word he heard the most during the previous stage. No, don't do that. No, stop, no. So let's say yes. Setting limits is important, but it means you need to redirect the child away from the danger or the things you don't want him to touch, to give him another idea. Redirect him and he forgets about the danger and he's interested in something else without danger. He needs to still be motivated for some new things. Isaiah 28 verse 9 says, "Who is it he is trying to teach? To whom is he explaining his message? to children weaned from their milk to those just taken from the breast. So this scripture tells us something. We can start to teach and explain when the child is weaned. That means it's around 2 years old. Before that, it's a time to explore. It's not so much the time to teach. And there may be tension in the mother. Either she is afraid that the child will break something, or that he will hurt himself, or that people will think that she does not discipline him enough. Whenever the child is motivated to do something, the child will encounter the mother's fear for one of the 3 reasons that I just mentioned. The 3 reasons are: she is afraid that he will break something, that he will hurt himself, or that people will think that she is not a good mom. Because of what the mother feels, the child also feels and interprets it in his life. Actually, the child needs to use his energy for something. When the child focuses on touching something, he gathers all his energy and will accomplish his task. He's motivated for it. And this teaches the child to focus his energy and use it. But if he cannot complete his project, and he says, no, he focuses his energy somewhere else, no, oh, no, he refrains his energy, and that energy builds up and spreads through his nervous system, and the child becomes fragmented, hyperactive, turbulent, and can lead to learning disabilities. So let's help the child focus on his project and encourage him. This is the time where the child learns 2 basic concepts. He learns about spatial relationships. The child will experience space by touching, putting his body in small places. You will see the child trying to go beyond the sofa or between the wall and the refrigerator. He's trying to put his head between bars. He's banging in his head all the time. He's exploring. He's learning about distance. He's learning about size. And he's integrating these spatial relationships. He's learning about conceptual relationships. This is the ability to create images in his thoughts. And something must be explored in order to conceptualize it. God already had an image of the things he wanted to create when he created them. Like he said, let there be a tree. And he knew what he wanted to create. He did not create something and say, oh, what is it? Oh, let's call it a tree. No. So we need first this concept of things, the basic image of things that is created in his life, and he's doing that through exploration. We need these 2 concepts to be able to learn afterwards. This is still a time for a healthy symbiosis. The peak of symbiosis actually is around 9 or 10 months. At 8-9 months old, the child is very connected with his mother to the highest degree. The mother needs to realize that the child still needs her to be with him. The child at this age perceives all the emotions of the mother. He perceived it is his fault if the mother is not going well. If the mother is depressed, she needs to go to God to seek comfort quickly, and not to take her child in her arms and trying to bring comfort to her through the child. This is very unhealthy actually. He is put in the place of a surrogate spouse, and the mom expects from him something that he cannot give. It's still a time where the child needs to receive. So go to God to seek for your needs, moms. And this is a time, of course, of initiative, of exploring. It's also a time for the child in his initiative and his exploring to start to feed himself. Around 10 months old, the child starts to have problems with food. He wants to learn to feed himself. If the mom feeds him herself, the child believes that he is not able to do it himself. Later on, this adult may find it difficult to be independent. The child can keep his spoon, and the mom can make him eat a few spoons in between, the one the child takes for himself. This is not a problem as long as the child can keep control of the spoon. So give a spoon to the child and continue to feed him with the other spoon. The child is very messy at this time. I remember our son Baptiste. You can see the area around his chair. It was just covered with food on the table, under the table. But it was a time for him to explore and to try. And it's a time when the child makes a lot of mess. He's dirty, he puts it everywhere. And if the mom spends her time cleaning and does not like the mess, the child notices how the mother feels. So beware of disrespecting for the child. The child is very sensitive to this. Like when you spit on a handkerchief to clean the child's face, don't do that. Don't take shortcuts. Do to the child what you would like someone to do for you. It's not the time to discipline yet. Isaiah 7 verse 15 says, "And he shall eat cream and honey until he know how to reject the evil and choose the good." And in the Hebrew culture, the child is weaned between the ages of 2 and 3. Honey and cream correspond to the time of weaning. This verse shows us when a child begins to be disciplined, around 2 years old. Before that, it's a time where there is no real rebellion in the child's heart. A child, a 15-month-old, can come to you with a glass of water and put the water on the ground to see the nice things the water does when it's splashed everywhere. But it's not to provoke you. A few months later, when the child is 2, he will see when he puts water on the ground how you manage your anger and what is the reaction in your life. The motivation is very different. When a child is disciplined too early, he will be robbed of the time he has spent exploring, and the rest of his life he will try to make up for that time of exploration and fight discipline because it has taken time out of exploration. At 15 months, you have this little seed of self-control that hasn't hatched yet. The mother wants to put that control over the child so that the child behaves properly and obeys. After 15 months, the child doesn't have the strength to fight this discipline, so the mother starts the discipline on the child. The mother wants to be the one who controls the child. The child then gives the mother this seed of self-control, and then the child will grow up with an external authority to exercise self-control in his place. And when there is no more authority, the child becomes uncontrollable. The child actually learns that he has to behave according to the expectations of the parents who steal the motivation and initiative of him. The child responds according to the expectation of the parents. The child finds himself under the regime of human fear. Many have learned to please men, not according to their own motivations, and therefore not according to God's motivation, but according to those of others. If we do this, we exhaust ourselves because we operate on the expectations of others. We receive too much pressure, too many expectations from others on our lives. And the fear of man exhausts you. By forcing a child who is too young to obey, we teach him the fear of man, and that is not biblical. Let's talk about potty training. This is not the time to teach the children to be clean. If they are taught too early, an external expectation is placed on the child. The muscles needed to be clean are not yet ready physiologically, and they are not yet under the control of the child. If this is demanded on the child before the physiological time, he may adapt to please you. He will learn under pressure, but for the rest of his life he will feel controlled. Being cleaned is not appropriate until 18 to 20 months old. And you know, rebellion is a natural reaction to outside control. So if you start controlling the child too early, you will unleash rebellion in the following stage. It is important to give the child a rhythm and a schedule, but not to let it become overly religious. Stay flexible. Have fun being parents and help the child enjoy life. Beware of the mentality of the microwave society, where we do not take the time to educate, to make disciples, but only to stop the attitudes that bother us and to correct it. So, during this stage, there are decisions that the child takes about life and self. I have wants and needs. I am in touch with my needs. I know how to express them. I do things for others. The healthy parenting behavior is freedom and protection for the child to explore, and positive unconditional affection. An unhealthy parental behavior would be restriction of the child's mobility, lack of protection, premature potty training. The problems that can have roots at this stage are passivity, crying too often, suradaptation, meaning adapting yourself to other people's expectations too much, anxiety, withdrawal, negativism, agitations, lack of initiative and motivations. The feelings may be seen as a problem and are ignored. The symptoms can be, oh, I don't know how I feel. I'm disconnected from my feelings. I don't know how to begin something. The feelings are ignored until they can be contained, and they may resurface in escalation. To meet the needs, it's about Deuteronomy 6, verse 6 to 9, once again. You need to give the child permission to feel and think at the same time. We need to build, exhort, encourage, affirm, give permission to explore with the necessary protection, and be an example of the Father's love for him. Now, once again, we put the steps towards healing and restoration. And once again, I encourage you to take this time with your Heavenly Father and to see, with revelation of His Spirit, if He's showing you any aspect during this stage of life that may generate problems in your adult life now. Let the Lord visit you and heal you and touch you in these unmet needs. And let the Lord bring this deep healing and deliverance in your heart. When you finish this process, I will put a few questions that you can share and discuss in groups and pray for one another. May the Lord bless you.